Hi, everybody. Welcome to Gotta Pop. On today's show, I have a return guest to the show, and that is my friend Dave LeGates. Welcome back to the show, Dave.
Thanks. Always love being here.
I always love having you here. And to
Thanks. Great.
Hey, my pleasure. And
Hey.
to those who have seen or listened to Dave on the show before, you might be surprised to learn that today we are not talking about Daryl Hall and John Oates. That was the focus of the two previous shows we did. I'm not saying they might not make it into this one, but the primary
True.
focus here is holiday music, Christmas music in particular.
Yeah.
We're recording
Yeah.
this on December 18th, so we're real close to Christmas. We're going to highlight some of our favorites, in particular a big hit from 1984. And Dave, could you tell our viewers and watchers what that song is?
Oh, do they know it's Christmas? Feed the world. Yeah.
Such a
Band-Aid.
classic.
Classic. Yeah. And and not only just a great Christmas song, but perhaps one of the most important singles of probably our lifetime, really. I mean, when it comes right down to it, here's a song that got the ball rolling to one thing led to another with a whole lot of charitable music through
Yeah,
the 80s, which became a big thing, but then of course led to the wonderful Live Aid the next year. And when it was all said and done, I mean, let's face it, I mean, it probably would not be a shortcoming to say that it's perhaps the possibility that this song started in saving what could have been maybe about half a continent. I
yeah.
mean, yeah, it was
Yeah, that's
really
not an
what.
understatement at all. I mean, it did so
No,
much to benefit
it
people.
did. It did. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, it's incredible.
it is.
Bob Geldof, who generally wasn't known for being a very nice man, uh, he he was, obviously, the lead. Well, not obviously. To those of you who don't know, he's the lead singer of the Boomtown Rats, and Bob had, well, he basically he was on the decline. His career was basically bottoming out, and he had just left the record company, and they were basically kind of putting him on notice, more or less. And he walks into the house that night, and it was towards the end of October, and he turns on BBC News that night, and he sees a documentary portion by Michael Burke, who was highlighting the fast growing famine in Africa that was going on in 1984, a very politically charged famine that
Hmm.
that had taken place, and hundreds and hundreds of people a day were dying from this famine. And it was
So horrible.
it was horrible, just some
Oh gosh,
horrific
yeah.
scenes. Yeah. And then to move a very hard-hearted man like Geldof, to move him into motivating him to doing something about it, really spoke volumes. Um, he suffered with the thoughts for about a day or so, and then his wife, or his partner at the time, she was working at BBC, and she had a TV show called The Tube,
Hmm.
and
That's who,
she
Paula Yates, is that
Paula
her name?
Yates is her
Yeah,
name.
okay.
Yeah, she was wound up Michael Hutchins. Uh,
Yeah, that's a whole other
yeah,
story there. Whew.
for some other historic thing. Paula was quite a popular Paul was quite a popular figure in
Hmm.
British television, and she was hosting the Tube, and she just happened to have somebody in the dressing room when Bob called down to say hello to her, and it was Midge Ure. And Midge Ure was in the room, and it was kind of a phone call that changed lives forever, really. So they decided, he explained the situation, what he saw. Midge had not seen the documentary, but he said that, he was interested in being helpful. And, what was good about it was that Midge was at the time on the way up. I mean,
Yeah,
he was
His band
Ultravox,
Ultravox was,
his
they
band
had some hits, but they were
Ultravox,
getting more and more popular.
more popular by the hour. And so that's why he was on the Tube and on all the music shows and whatnot. And so anyway, Bob had discussed the possibility of, hey, could we do a Christmas song that we could get out in time for the holidays, and and involve some of the biggest names in the British music scene at the time. And so what they did was, he was agreeable, but then the first thing he said, he goes, Bob, I'll be honest with you. He goes, if we do a song, you got to donate half the royalties of the song to the
Hmm.
songwriter and whatnot. He says, so we can't use it for famine relief. So he says, we have to write a song of our own. And so they decided to separately write a song. And then they were going to come together on the ideas. And Bob was very good with words, so with music. Midge obviously was very good with music.
Hmm.
And so they submitted each other's ideas to each other. Bob's portion of it was only, like I said, so. And when Midge had heard, when Bob had heard Midge's portion, he thought it sounded like a theme song to a police show, a British police show called Z
Oh, really?
Cars. Yeah. And he says, Midge, you stole Z. Well, they call it Z Cars. Okay. You know, the British people say Z, right? On Z
Right.
Cars. Right. And he goes, it's not Z Cars. He says, I goes, I just came up with this. And Bob's portion of it was basically an unused song that he had hanging around that he just strummed basically and then put
Oh, I
some
didn't
raw
know that.
yeah, put some raw lyrics to it. And so Midge took both pieces and then he decided to work out the details. And in the meantime, Bob was going to start calling all the local British, pop stars to come and sing on the song. Well, as you can imagine, a lot of people know Bob, okay, and some don't like him all that much, and not only that, but some don't trust him, okay.
Oh,
Uh,
wow. I didn't know all
yeah,
this. This is
yeah,
interesting.
yeah, and not only don't they, they're afraid because they know his career is bottoming out, and they're thinking that he's using this to revive his career essentially.
Wow.
Okay,
Okay.
and so nobody really trusts him. In fact, only about 6 months earlier, the Bob had pulled a stunt that was getting to be well known in the British music scene. Was that Bob had a single out with the Rats called Dave, like my name, and he and
Based on
he
you,
they
obviously. And
of course I'm in all the songs
yeah.
eventually. So
There's a man
and
in Connecticut.
okay, yeah, there you go. So he the song wasn't doing well, but he felt that if they could get back on top of the pops, their career would come back up. Well, what he did was he had every member of the Rats withdraw every free penny they had, and they went all around the UK and they bought every copy of Dave they could
Are
possibly
you kidding
buy
me?
to try to get the
Oh my
sales of it,
gosh. Wow.
right? And this story had gotten around, okay, that he would put his mother on the yellow line eventually,
Oh
essentially
my
to
gosh.
save his career. I mean, he would go all out. So a lot of people didn't trust him. So anyway, but then when they heard Midge was involved, everything was okay, because
Okay.
they trusted him and they knew that he was good. So he worked out the two songs, put them together. Okay. He basically said they were two completely incompatible pieces, the beginning part of the song, which Bob had written, and the
Hmm.
Feed the World portion that he had written. Okay. And they took Bob's lyrics to him, and there was very little changes to him. He liked the lyrics. And then on the 25th of November, at Sarm Studios, Trevor Horn, the Buggles man, the
Yeah.
Buggles lead singer, who was the big producer at the time too, was supposed to initially be the producer, but they decided at the last minute not to use him. But he was running Sarm Studio, and he donated a full day to recording and mixing and the whole bit. And so on the 25th of November, on a Sunday morning, um everybody everybody convened on it. And Bob used a lot of trickery to get people to go. Okay, he was getting very well known for this little thing by going, well, so this one's come, the Duranis are coming, and this one, and
Oh,
so
okay. If
who are
they're
you
there,
that
you
you're
should be
not,
there,
you
kind of
got to
thing,
be there
right?
too. So then here comes Spandau Ballet. Here comes, and no, he's running into all these people, and he's just basically kind of putting that out there to them, saying, well, this one and that one are going to be there. So, well, anyway, they did not expect anybody to actually show because they spoke to no managers. Okay. And so,
Oh, wow.
nobody's thinking nobody's going to put this on their calendar. So Midge was like, did you speak to a grown up? And he was like, any grown ups? And he's like, no. So, but they all arrived, they all made it. And by mid morning, they were already starting to work on this one song that they had all never heard before. And it was about 40 of the British, bigwigs of music, plus Cool and the Gang and
Yeah,
Jody
Cool in the
Watt.
Gang.
Cool and the Gang and Jody Watley was also
Yeah, that was like the American
was the
representation there.
American representation
Well,
to it,
why
right?
don't we cover some of the acts that were there? Because, like you said, it was a pretty impressive group. My
It
gosh, like you
was.
said, you had Cool, Jody Watley, and then,
Yep.
gosh, some of the biggest singers: Paul Young,
Paul Young
Bono.
was there. Yep.
Phil Collins played drums but didn't sing, right?
He
Or
played
did he sing
drums. He played drums and may have I think he participated in the
in the
in the end
chorus?
part in
In
the
the
end
yeah.
chorus. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
he laid down two drum tracks and he didn't like the first one. They thought the first one, Midge said the first was perfect. And then he goes, I want to do another. And he did a second one. And Midge said it was even better than the first. And he said
Wow.
he was so happy with it that they, and it was clutch because he was kind of like, oh, I didn't want to not, everybody heard what a great drummer I am. I want to make sure they know for sure that I really am a good drummer. And
He
so
really is a great
he really
underrated
was.
drummer.
He was an underrated drummer of his time. It's too bad he can't drum anymore. It's kind of a shame.
Yeah, that is a
But
shame.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, so many others. You mentioned Bananarama,
Hmm.
Spandau Ballet, Paul Young, Sting was there, George Michael, Boy George. I don't know if all of Duran Duran was there, but a good portion of Duran Duran was
Yep.
there. And
They
then you
flew in
had some.
from
I'm sorry. Go
they
ahead.
flew in from Germany from that night. The Duranis and the Spandaus were together in Germany partying big
Oh,
time. Yeah, and they flew in from Germany and then they got there and then they got chased by a bunch of girls at the airport. And
oh
knew
wow.
they had to get to the car and they had to get to the studio. So they were on the run and they said when they got there, they looked terrible. And so so they had to make a mad dash for it. Yeah. It was quite a morning, I guess. Yeah.
But I remember, I'm sure you're like me, where I remember very clearly when this song came out. It was amazing.
Yeah.
Like you said, it was recorded on November 25th and 26th. Matter of fact, there's a spoken part from Bob Geldof at the end of
Hmm.
the record,
Hmm.
where he mentions that how they've been there for 24 hours and,
Yeah.
they're tired
I
and they
don't
want to go.
care if you like it. He said, I don't care.
But what was amazing is it was released on record very, very quickly after that. December 3rd, I think it was.
Yes. Yeah. Well,
And,
he had a deal with Phonogram, his record company, that they agreed to distribute the record as quickly as they could because the idea was to have a Christmas #1 single, which was the goal of it all. So yeah,
yeah.
they worked
And
quick.
I remember being blown away by it when it came out, and I was well, gosh, that was in 1984. I was 18 years old at the time,
Yeah.
and it was in addition to it being an entertaining song because you have all those legendary musicians on it, it was very educational in multiple ways. First of all, I probably like a lot of Americans, especially ones my age, I wasn't really fully aware of the horrific situation that was going on in
Right.
Ethiopia. I mean, I think it
Right.
educated a lot of us,
Well, we didn't have the
and
news cycle we have now. I mean,
no, that's true.
where everything was, we didn't have everything on the news back then. I mean, now, we know everything that's going on everywhere, but not
Yeah,
then,
much much different then.
Yeah, yeah, without
Yeah.
a doubt.
And this was something that was geared towards, younger listeners and just music lovers in general. And another thing that was educational was as an American, it taught me a lot about a lot of English performers that I was maybe not as
No
familiar with.
kidding. Yeah, we got much more enlightened to English pop at the of the time. I mean,
Yeah.
it really came more to life in that one video and who all the people we got to see all at once. And you got to see in the video each person's what part they saw,
Yeah.
sang and everything. And so it was good. It was very clearly done that way. And it was very educational to the typical American kid, without a
Yeah.
doubt.
It definitely was. And one thing that I like too is you had, of course, the popular version of the song, but then there's a longer version where you have a lot of the spoken messages from people that were sang
Right.
on it, but then others like Paul McCartney and David Bowie who didn't sing on the recording, but
Still got
they
to
put
speak and
they still got to
contribute.
speak.
They wanted the royalty, they wanted to make sure the royals of the music world there. Because basically, if you look at the members of Band Aid, they're relatively young. I
Yeah.
mean, when it comes to the average age of a Band Aid member was less than 28 years old at the time. And and which probably lends into the next fact that really only three of them have passed away in the whole time that since it's been recorded. George
That would be
Michael.
unfortunately David Bowie and who else?
Oh well, I'm speaking of the people that actually were in the participation of the recording.
Right, right. I'm sorry.
Okay, so George Michael was passed, Dennis Thomas from Kool and the Gang, and Rick Parfitt from Status Quo.
Oh, okay.
So those three are the only three, as compared to our American version, USA from Africa, we've lost about a dozen
Oh,
members by
yeah,
now. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah. They were relatively young
yeah.
bunch, you know,
It's hard to
and
believe that was 39 years ago now that that
39
came out.
years ago, yeah. And then Boy George was that they desperately wanted George on the recording, and he forgot to show up.
Oh,
And
really?
he forgot to show up. And so they asked the drummer, John Moss, the drummer of Culture Club. He goes, where's George?" Right? And it turns out he was in New York. So
Get out of here.
no, so John, and him were a little close, and
Yeah.
he said he knew what hotel George was in, and so he had them call the hotel, and they called the hotel. They got through to George's room. Geldof reamed them out, and he told him, "You get on a Concorde." He goes, "And you get over here, back
Oh,
when they had the
wow.
Concorde, yeah." And he did it, and so
I never heard that before. That's
yeah,
amazing.
and he did it. He paid a lot of money. He got on the Concorde. He arrived around 6:30 to do his part, and they told him
Oh, wow.
he wanted to get. He got there and he wanted to get drunk, and they were like, well, they said you got to buy your own stuff because nobody's got free alcohol around here. So they got him a brandy or whatever, and he
and
soothed his
and his
throat,
part
and
on the song was perfect
was
too.
amazing. It was maybe
Yeah.
one of the best parts,
Yeah.
which was really, really incredible. Paul Young wound up doing the opening part. They really wanted Bowie for that, but Paul wound up being the opener in that part. And Sting took on quite a leadership role with this, where everybody kind of looked up to him in the whole thing. They were very reliant upon him, and he had come in a few days earlier and done a few parts early for them and everything. And so he was definitely a big part of the whole process, where everybody felt very, very joined to him. Um,
I like
so
that
they
in the
were.
longer. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Dave.
No, go ahead. Finish.
I was just going to say I like in the longer version of the song where you can hear Sting sing a little bit more in that one
Yeah,
than you can in the
that's
pop in the
true.
shorter version
In the
because I think he
radio
sings the bitter
version, yeah,
sting
in
of
the radio,
tears and it
yeah,
sounds
which
great.
is which makes him the only person to say his name in the record.
That's
Um,
true.
so
I
yeah,
didn't think of it that way.
there you go. And so so the whole idea of the record was to, I guess they wanted to get about 800,000 pounds or something like that. They thought they would get, and they wound up getting 3 or 4 million on that first go around.
Wow.
Um, yeah, and George Michael was a little upset because that was the year he had Last Christmas all ready to go, and he
Oh,
knew it was going to compete with number one with Do They Know It's Christmas? Okay, and so he got a little upset about it, and he thought it over, and then you know what? And I don't know what people know, and this is something for the listeners, is that he has donated every penny of royalty to Last Christmas to famine relief to
I
this
did not know
day.
that.
To this
Wow.
day. So if anytime you hear, anytime anybody wants to do anything to help feed somebody, put on Band-Aid video, put on Last Christmas, whatever, that money goes to famine relief to this
That's
day.
fantastic. I didn't
So
know that. And you
yes,
figure Last Christmas really has had, in a lot of ways, more staying power than Do They Know It's Christmas because
it's a
it's
much
more
more
pop
popular
friendly and radio
song.
friendly.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
a much more popular song. It's had way more sales than Do They Know It's Christmas. Um, but George donated every bit of royalty to the Band-Aid Trust.
That's
So
amazing. That's
yeah,
amazing.
so to this day it's still feeding, all both songs are still feeding the world.
That's great. And I love that, it's an older song, but, younger listeners get turned on to it. It might not have, like we said, maybe the same appeal to a lot of people who weren't around back then, just simply because they weren't there like we were,
Well, the nice thing is that they have updated it through the years.
yes, they
They've
have.
refreshed
Yeah.
it a few times with more today's stars. So, so maybe, there's a chance of somebody in today's vernacular relating to it.
Yeah.
A little
Still
bit
gets
more.
played a lot
So
on the
it's
radio,
still,
and
and right. And for us, it's still nostalgic,
yeah,
it's become a bit of nostalgia. It's become a pops, a Christmas standard for sure.
it has for sure.
Um, yeah, and you know what, and sadly, as Mitch says, he says it's the most successful song I ever wrote, and he says, and I've written way better songs than this one, and it's the truth. I mean, Mitch
Yeah.
was an amazing songwriter. Even Bob has written better songs than that one.
Right.
It's not a great song,
No, but it's
okay,
just, it's of course what's
but
there behind
it's
it that what
what's
makes it so
behind it,
appealing.
yeah,
And
and yet
yeah,
they did so much with it, and it was just such an amazing outcome, which led into so many other things afterwards, and
yeah. And it definitely
and
helped their careers out because I know it gave me an interest in Midge, finding out more about him. And
sure,
like, I think I
yeah,
had his first solo album that had that song, If I Was. I don't know if you remember that.
right,
That
yeah,
was
I do
awesome. And
remember that, yeah,
yeah,
and
Geldof had a good solo album, Deep in the Heart of Nowhere, after that. So,
yep, it
I
didn't
know they weren't doing it for
hurt,
personal
yeah.
reasons, but it benefited them.
Yeah, it didn't hurt, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
and Geldof became kind of a hero. He went from the dregs of the music world to basically hero status, which,
Yeah.
it's an amazing thing. It's an
It
amazing
is. It
thing.
is.
Yeah, how it all turned out.
It
And it's a
really
part of
is.
history we'll never forget, a period of time we'll never forget. And maybe sometime next year we can discuss Live Aid, and we'll go into some of the fun with that, because that
Yeah.
was quite an
Oh, that was
interesting
quite a thing.
time.
And I was there. I that was one of the best days of my life.
I
I
bet
loved
it was. I'm
it.
sure
It was amazing.
you can have so much to talk about it, and I think it's just,
Exactly.
yeah,
And
there's
since I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I do that a
no,
lot.
that's
I was going
okay.
to say, why don't we wanted to cover some other favorite Christmas songs
Yes,
of
yes,
ours
I'm
too.
excited about this
Yeah,
actually.
I kind of put together my own personal top five, but
Okay,
I'll be interested to see if we have some that maybe cross over there.
I bet we do. I'm just gonna take
You
a
go
guess
for it.
at least one or two. Okay, my favorite Christmas song of all time is "Happy Holiday" by Andy Williams. Okay, will always be my favorite Christmas song.
Not sure I know that.
Oh, okay. I'm
I
sure you
probably do.
do.
Yeah. How happy
You've
holiday?
heard that
Yes.
song.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you know it. And then my Christmas season is not complete. And so far it's not complete because I haven't heard either one of these on the radio. I'm a little disappointed. Celebrate Me Home, Kenny
Oh,
Loggins, has
I
gotta
love that
be.
one. Such a
Absolutely.
great
Same
song.
same old Lang Syne, Dan Fogelberg, gotta have it. Okay. And I don't want any knockoff of the Loggins one. I want Kenny. Okay. Um, well, here's the thing. Let me tell you this. I
Okay.
can't stand Foo Foo Christmas. Okay, the Mariah and all the knockoffs. Okay, I am tired of it. Okay, I want to hear these good songs. Okay, I don't want Kelly. I don't want Mariah. I don't. All right, here's what I want.
Yeah, keep it going here.
Yeah, Step Into Christmas, Elton John. Okay,
Mm.
and is always one of my favorites. And I love the new one, Merry Christmas with Ed Sheeran and him. I don't know if you've heard it.
I don't think I
It's
have.
I'd say it's about 2 years now, 2 years old.
Okay.
And I think it's great. It has a Step Into Christmas kind of feel to it. And when you listen to the song, you'll definitely feel for the songs that we knew back in the day. If it's got a nice feel to it. And any Carpenter's Christmas song.
Oh yeah.
Uh Karen Carpenter
Oh,
was the
that
bomb.
voice. She was
She
amazing.
ruled she ruled Christmas right over there from New Haven, she was.
Oh,
And
really? Okay.
yeah. And last Christmas, George. I want George. Taylor's is all right, but I want George.
Oh,
Last
Taylor
Christmas.
did that?
Taylor's done a remake of Last Christmas.
Oh, I didn't know
Taylor,
that.
yeah, it's been around for a couple of years now. It's all right. James Taylor, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas.
Oh, I love his version of that.
Isn't it great?
It's really
Isn't it
good.
great? So yeah, so melancholy and nicely done. The Charlie Brown dance song,
Oh yeah.
yeah, and any Trans Siberian Orchestra song, go for it. And Little Drummer Boy with Bowie and Bing.
Oh yeah, that's one of my favorites. That's in my top five. Hey,
Good. All
I
right.
want to
Yeah.
show you something now.
Yes.
Those of you who are listening, you're not going to be able to behold the beauty of this, but I have on my ugly Christmas sweater that's got lights.
Yes. With your
It's for the
Bengals stuff
Cincinnati
on.
Bengals.
Nice.
That's my team.
That's your team. My little brothers too.
Oh yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, oh
So I
yeah,
got the
he's
lights.
always been a big Bengals fan.
I only
And
became a
my
fan a few years ago. I'm
yeah,
a
yeah,
Eagles fan too, but
yeah.
had to
And
break
last
that
one
out
I
for this
know
show.
is on, and last one I know is on your list. I know it. It's got to be there. And we're gonna talk about this a little bit too. Christmas is the time to say I love you. It's got to be on your
It
list.
is. Yeah, it's
All
on my
right, good.
list. That
All
is one
right,
of my
good.
favorites.
So let
So
me hear
here,
yours.
okay, now this is not in any particular order, but these songs would be in my top five. And you mentioned Little Drummer Boy as part of the
Hmm.
Bowie and Bing song. I was also going to throw in the Little Drummer Boy by Joan Jett and the Blackhearts that was
Yes,
on
I've
some
heard that.
editions of her I Love
Yes.
Rock and Roll album. That
Yep.
song rocks. It's a really good version
It
of it.
does. It does.
One of my all-time favorites. This was a favorite of my father's actually, and it was the Christmas song "Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas" by Nat King Cole. I mean, once
Nice.
that
The
starts with the
original
chestnuts
version. Yeah.
roasting on an open fire, it's just
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
classic.
Beautiful.
Um,
Yes.
it's a great one. This is one from the '70s, and it is "This Christmas" by Donny Hathaway.
Yes.
There's
Been
been a
played
lot
a
of
lot
remakes of that.
lately. Well, Donnie's has been on a lot lately too. A real lot. More than
Yeah,
usual, which I'm really glad to hear.
it seems like it's gained in popularity over the
Yeah.
years, I think.
Yeah.
I don't even remember hearing it too much when it was originally out, but it seemed like in the
Right.
80s and
Right.
90s it took off more. And I
Right.
just love his voice on that. He was
Me
so
too.
good.
Me too. He was really good.
Yeah. And well, you mentioned, gosh, one of my favorites, and that's Billy Squier, Christmas is the Time to Say I Love You. That is, I've always been a Billy fan.
Epic. Epic.
Billy rocks. Billy's got such a cool voice, and I can't remember the circumstances of when that was recorded. I don't know if that was for a charity or some sort of compilation album. It wasn't on one of his albums. It was,
Okay.
but you probably remember it as I do in that in one of the first couple of years of MTV, they used to record special things for Christmas, and they had Billy
Yeah.
there in the studio with all of the MTV hosts, the VJs, and the crew members, and they used to play this video, gosh, all the time, and I just
Remember it
loved
well.
it.
I would say maybe I'm being dramatic. You can tell me if I'm dramatic, okay?
Okay.
Because I'd say it that song and that video, the song is probably one of the most culturally important Christmas songs of our time. And the
Nice.
reason I can say that is because, you know, when when all MTV started, okay, and everything was just, getting off the ground, and they were starting to do, like you said, videos of people coming into the studio and doing a song like that. You know, Christmas for teenagers falls apart. I'm on my third set of teenagers, okay? Myself,
Hmm.
okay, my kids, and now my grandchildren are teenagers, okay? And you start to see Christmas take on, it loses something in the teen years, you know what I mean? Once Santa Claus and all that other stuff is going, you kind
Right.
of feel a little lost by it. And then it starts to become something that the old people do, and that you're, just there and you get in present, whatever, and then you go back in your room or whatever,
Yeah,
and,
and
and
sometimes
you,
the kids have no interest in. They don't want to have
no
anything to do with
interest,
it,
right? They
and
don't want anything to do with it and everything.
yeah,
When that came out, uh, all of a sudden, you're looking at the TV. Here's one of the coolest rock stars around. Okay. He's
yeah,
sitting in the middle of a bunch of people who are just grown up versions of yourself. Okay. Who, the MTV people, basically, they were just little older versions of us. Okay. Which
yeah.
is the way I saw it. And, they're all singing and swaying, and, they got a bunch of presents behind them, and they look like they're going to have a party, and and they're going to sing songs, and they're going to laugh and have a good time. And you're looking at that as a teenager and saying, wait, that could be Christmas for me,
Yeah,
you know? And
yeah,
so you're like looking at that and you're saying, well, why are these people are having fun at Christmas? They're like having, and there are, people who look like our friends,
yeah,
And so the next thing you know, you're hanging out with your friends at Christmas time. Well, hey, you want to get together? You want to do this? You want to do that? And you're over somebody's house and you're exchanging gifts and you're playing songs and you're singing and having a good time. And you're saying, so wait a minute, Christmas is kind of back. You know what I
right.
mean? And so, and then, but you had never seen before that the emergence of a friend party. You know what
Yes,
I
you're
mean?
right.
And then as the 80s went on, that became the norm, where people started to have more, Christmas friend parties. It wasn't just about family. There was like more coworker, friend, people you knew, kind of all hanging out,
Hmm.
and having. I remember my mom, like starting to have friends over the house at the holidays. We never
Right.
did that before. I mean, so when you look at that, you can't honestly say, okay, well, that song was that made it happen or whatever. But you know what? I'm not a believer in coincidence. These kinds of things just started to take off like right
Yeah,
after that.
you're right. They
And
did.
yeah, and so how is you can't really ignore the fact that this sort of seemed to put a trend in place that where you started to look at Christmas like a little bit differently, like it could be something more than just you and your family hanging out,
Exactly.
one day a year. And so to say that I think that it may have had some cultural impact, it's possible that it did.
I think you are right. I love your analogies there, and I think you're on to something. And it was just now maybe younger people now might see the video and not appreciate it like we would, because when you that came out, you had Billy Squier. He just started becoming really famous, and
Right,
then so he
right.
was a new superstar. The people
Yep.
on MTV, you had the original VJs. You had Mark Goodman, JJ Jackson, Nina Blackwood, Martha Quinn, and Alan
Coolest
Hunter.
people on the planet to us at the time. I
Coolest people on
mean,
the planet. Yeah. And I
yeah,
still love hearing all of them with the exception of JJ, because unfortunately he passed several years
yeah,
ago.
we
But
miss them. Yeah,
they're on Sirius XM, Martha's on
yeah.
iHeartRadio, and I've still got my friends
Still like to
I hear
listen to them.
almost every
Yeah, I
day. Yeah.
do. Yeah.
But seeing that video, there was like you watch it now, and I'm gonna actually on my page on Medium, thebuddygot.com, I'm going to have this video, but then I'm going to also include some of the videos for songs that we're talking about. And I want to
Neat,
include that there. And it's just so
neat.
much fun because you see on their faces, Martha is having such a great time on there. I used to have such a
Right,
crush on Martha. She's
right.
just dancing
Yeah,
and
yeah.
happy. They all have this childlike excitement on their
And
faces.
about their faces, right?
Yeah,
And
it's like a big Christmas party. It's just wonderful.
and to a kid, we were kind of like Christmas had kind of, it died, and then
Yeah.
you look at that and you start saying, well, wait a minute, maybe it's not dead,
No.
maybe it has some, intrinsic value again, and
Yeah.
if these people are, if our coolest friends out in the whole world on this TV can have themselves a Christmas party hanging out with Billy Squire and singing, and well, we can
Exactly.
do something too. I mean,
Yeah.
we can have a good time too. So,
Right.
and
And
that's just
I
the
loved
way
it
it
then, and
was.
I watch it now, and it's
Yeah.
I almost get like teared up and like
Oh,
happy
stop. I
tears.
start crying. Stop. It's
Do you?
terrible. I hate,
Yeah,
yeah.
you're my boy, Dave. We're so much
Yeah.
alike.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just makes me feel so good.
Yeah.
There's certain songs and memories that do that, and
And you
well,
did a
another one
nice
that. Go
piece,
ahead. I'm
and you did a
sorry.
nice piece on his last album, by the way, which you did the good review on it. So anybody who
Oh,
hasn't
thank
seen
you.
Buddy's review on the album, go back and check that out
Oh, thank you so
because you
much.
do have that on there and on your site, and that was
Thank you. I
really amazing.
appreciate
So good.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
So
love
yes,
Billy.
next.
I want to see Billy in concert one more time. I saw him once in the
You
'80s, and it
saw
was
him once,
awesome.
yeah,
I
yeah.
saw him
I
with
gave away
Rat.
tickets to. Did you? I gave away tickets to. Well, my Subway shop was donated 2 tickets to him and Def Leppard that
Oh,
played at
nice.
the Coliseum, and I did an internal raffle for it, and yeah, and so the people who, and it was a meet and greet, so they got to go and meet him and
Oh,
what have you, and
oh,
the
very
people
cool.
who won were absolutely enamored with him.
Oh, that is so awesome. I love
It
that.
went real well,
That's
so
great.
that's good. Yeah,
Uh, the other one I had, it was well, one of my favorites. You mentioned it, and I think I mentioned it too. Was Bing and Bowie doing "Little
yeah,
Drummer Boy" and
yeah. Great
"Peace on
story
Earth."
too. Peace on Earth.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. If you
great
want to share the
story.
story of how that
Yeah,
happened,
that was a yeah, they well Bing was going to do his Christmas special and what have you, and he wanted to get uh, a younger performer in to keep people interested. He didn't know what direction he was going, but his kids bugged him to get David Bowie. And you know, Bing's kids, they annoyed him, but then he finally saw what Bowie looked like, and he was like, "There's no way I can have this guy on
oh,
my
really?
special."
Wow.
He said, "There's no way," and they said he's got to show up looking like a decent, an upstanding young man. You remember how Bing was. Bing was hardcore.
Yeah, oh
He was
yeah.
our parents.
Yeah, he
And
was.
that was kind of what this turned out to be, though. This was like our generation and our parents like coming together, like representation kind of thing, where everybody was represented in this. And
Right.
yeah, and so Bowie did. He showed up looking normal, and he said the only reason why he did it, he says, was because his mother loved Bing. And so he wanted to make her happy for Christmas by doing the Bing special. So he agreed to do it. And but then he got there and he said he absolutely cannot stand the song Little Drummer Boy.
Oh, really?
And yep, and he said he didn't even want to sing the song. And Bing was like, well, what would you like to sing, young man? That kind of thing. And he says, well, anyway, the producers already hate Bowie. Okay,
Hmm.
because they're Big's friends and they're
Right.
right, and so they're
All these
already hey,
guys in their
yeah,
70s and stuff.
exactly, yeah. So they can't stand him. Okay, so but anyway, they take him into another room and they sit there, and in under 90 minutes they write that Peace on Earth part
Wow.
to interlace with Bing singing Little Drummer Boy. And that was not written before that day. And so,
Wow.
yeah, that was not
That's
written before
amazing.
that day. They wrote that in under 90 minutes, learned it, right? Everybody got the words down. They had to learn that awkward, entrance where he comes and visits, Bing at his place and whatever, that you've
Right.
seen the beginning of. It's real
Oh
awkward.
yeah, yeah, I've seen that
Yeah,
video. Yeah,
yeah,
where he's just like
super, super awkward. Yeah. And so they're
it's
muttering,
total
they're
70s variety show
total
kind of thing.
70s
It's like, "Oh, what
variety
are you
show
doing
kind of.
here?" "Oh, I'm here. I just see."
They're looking off in the distance reading the dialogue because that's where the cue card is, that very, very Bob Hope like,
Yes,
that's what
yes.
what they did. And so you ever watch a Bob Hope special, they're all staring in the distance. So that's where the cue card is, where the script. So anyway, yeah, they go through that but then they start to play the song, and they did that whole thing in two takes.
Are you serious? That's amazing.
Two
That
takes.
is
The
amazing.
second one was spot on. Okay.
Wow.
And you know what? Bing wound up loving Bowie because he
Oh, that's
was
so
actually,
cool.
yeah, because he learned so quickly and so efficiently to be able to learn another song and to put that whole thing together, and he really wound up feeling very fond of him. And he was like, if I
Wow.
do this another time, would you come back? And and all that and the sad part about it is Bing never saw it. He died before it went on the air.
And what was it? Was it 77, 78? I
Yeah,
guess somewhere around
77,
there.
78, somewhere
Yeah.
around there. He
Somewhere
died
around there, yeah.
he died
Oh,
like
I
three
didn't I didn't know he
weeks
passed before it even aired.
before it
Wow.
ever aired. About 3 weeks, 2 weeks before it aired. They taped it over the summer, or the end of the summer,
Oh, wow.
and they worked out all the production, and yeah, he passed before it ever went on the air.
Wow.
So
And I
yeah.
don't recall watching it at the time. If I did, I was real little and I probably didn't even know who David Bowie was at that point. But I remember, I guess in the early to mid 80s is when they finally released it as a single. Or did it come out
Mhm.
earlier than that?
It came out, I think, in the early 80s because I do believe MTV had it as an early video
Oh, I
for the
think you're right. Yeah.
holidays.
Yeah.
So I'm going to say it probably was released as a single by then.
And I was blown away by it. And I'm like, how?
Yeah,
Because I knew who Bing Crosby was, but I was
sure.
like, well, their voices can't go together that great, but they sounded beautiful together.
They did.
You,
They
you,
put
you
it, it
hear
was
Bing doing the bum, 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 bum,
right.
I'm getting it
Sounding
wrong, but
so big,
I'm no
yeah,
Bing
sounding
Crosby.
so big, and like
Yeah.
just so typical. I mean, they didn't vary from their personalities in any specific way.
Yeah.
Singing wise, it was very, very Bowie-like singing, and Bing was being typical Bing that we'd grown up. My parents, put on all those specials when I was younger. I don't know about your house, but we had those things
Oh,
on
yeah.
every
Yeah, that was it. Like
every
him and you mentioned Andy Williams. They were on every Christmas season. They had their TV
Andy,
specials
him,
on.
yeah, Bob Hope, all
Yeah.
them. They all had their Christmas specials that were, yeah, every year they were tradition. I mean, they all got
Yeah.
together. We had our three networks. That's pretty much all we had for
Yeah, that
channel,
was pretty
four or
much
five
it.
channels tops, and that was it. Yeah, and yeah, so that was entertainment.
It sure was. And what's nice is that, we have these songs like the ones we've mentioned that still get played pretty frequently, on radio stations or on satellite stations or wherever Christmas music
Mhm.
is played. And but there is new stuff that comes around, like you said, like the Ed Sheeran, Elton John, or you're not a fan of it, but I love Mariah Carey's Christmas song. I do, I admit it. Well, it's one of the
Everybody
biggest
do.
songs of the past 30
Hey,
years.
well,
Yeah.
it is what it is. I mean,
Yeah,
you
it is
can't
what it
take
is.
anything away.
And
You can't take anything away from it. I mean,
yeah.
it comes out every year. There's a reason for it, and
Yeah.
people like it.
Yeah, and I think John Legend had put out something a couple years ago. I think like "You Deserve It All," which was a really good song that I like.
Hmm.
And there's always something new. Cher just put out her first Christmas album, and there's always something. Younger artists who I'm not over. Oh my gosh, I discovered. Are you? I don't know if you're a Judas Priest fan, but Rob Halford, the singer for Judas Priest,
No
he he
way. Has
he
a
released a
Christmas song.
Christmas album, and
Get
it's
out of
really
town.
good. A couple years. It's 2 or 3 years old, but it's really good.
You know which one we didn't mention yet, and it
What's
was on my
that?
list, and I overlooked it. We forgot Daryl and John's Jingle Bell Rock.
Oh, yeah, Jingle Bell Rock, which is another one that was popular on MTV back in the 80s. There
MTV
were
early.
two versions of the song.
Two versions. Yep. No
One that,
preference. I don't care. Either one works
yeah,
for
me
me.
either.
Yeah.
One has Daryl singing lead
One
and the
is
other has
Daryl.
John singing lead. To
Yeah.
me, too, that is one of my all-time favorite music videos of
With
theirs.
GE dressed as the grandmother.
Oh, it's hilarious.
I bust every time I see him dressed as the freaking grandmother. I really do. I lose it when I see G, and he's playing the phony guitar. It's not even
Yeah,
a real
yeah.
guitar. Yeah.
And
Oh,
my
that
favorite part is
slays me.
John Oates does some funny acting in that
Funny
too. I mean,
acting and facial
intentional funny
expressions,
acting.
and yeah,
Yeah, he's like
facial
this,
expressions. Yeah.
doing all this stuff.
Yes. And
It's hilarious.
he has they have those grandfatherly sweaters
Yeah,
on
like a
and
green sweater,
yeah,
and
they look very old
Daryl's
home
doing like a
and
funny little dance at the
dance
beginning, and
beginning. Yeah. And it was so playful and campy. And it was just, you gotta love it. It's
yeah, I'll
classic
include that
now.
video here
Yeah, you got to put
on
that one
page
on.
for this
And
too.
don't matter
So
which lead. They either one appeal. I mean, when I hear them on the radio, I don't care which one I hear lead.
yeah,
It's great.
they are great. Any other favorites that you want to mention?
Those are my favorites. I mean, pretty much, I mean, it's nice when people come out with newer songs, newer Christmas songs, because I think that the old standards have been updated. Have been updated enough. I think people have done that. What I do like is the fact that the Billboard and the ratings industries have allowed Christmas songs to take a rightful place in the chart now, whereas in the
Hmm.
past they didn't include them in the current top 40s or top 100 or 200 or whatever. They didn't put them in, but now they're included, and because of which
I
um
know where you're going with this.
yeah,
Go ahead.
Miss Brenda Lee got to be number one there, huh?
That's
Yeah.
amazing with
Yes.
"Rocking Around the Christmas Tree."
Yeah, and it's good because the songs that did not maybe get the fullest recognition they did the first time around, maybe 40, 50 years ago, now can get full recognition as a certified number one song
Yeah,
that they didn't get before. You know what I mean?
exactly.
And these are the songs we hear them year after year. They're played day after day during the holidays. I mean, why can't they be a number one song? They
Yeah,
certainly could,
exactly.
certainly could be.
And it's
And
amazing because I saw, like you said, she just had a number one song. I think I don't know if she's in her 80s now or at least
yeah,
in her late 70s,
and
maybe.
I think it was her first ever,
Yeah,
which
and it's amazing because she had that, and then Dolly Parton around the same time had like her hit album. You
yeah,
got these artists who are in their 70s and even 80s who are doing, and the
dead people.
Stones.
Dean
Yeah,
Martin 2 years ago got a number one, went number one, right?
Dean Martin
And
did.
Dean Martin did.
I didn't know
Okay,
that with one of the
yeah,
Christmas songs.
with one of his Christmas songs. Yeah,
That was on my list too. I love Dean Martin's "Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer." That is one of my favorites. You hear
I,
he talks with like a
I,
German accent at
he
one point.
talks with a jerk. Yeah, he call him
Yeah,
Rudolph Rudy, and yeah,
yeah, yeah.
and we laugh at that. We laugh at that every Christmas season because I could
It's a
see like
fun one though.
my cousin Billy, who was my old Italian cousins, loving Dean, which they did, and
Yeah.
I could just see him thinking that that was hilarious. You know what I mean? He loved it.
Yeah, along the
So,
same lines as Dean, I just want to mention this one before we go. Another one of my favorites is Mr. Francis Albert Sinatra with his "Let It Snow, Let It Snow, Let It Snow." He just
it's
sounds so
great.
cool. The guy is just so cool in that
Yes,
song.
yes.
He's like, "Let it
And
snow. I don't care. Let
I
it
don't care.
snow."
Yeah. Well, the thing is with Frank was that he recorded a song in 2 or 3 minutes and then he was all right, I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
One take.
Pretty
Everything was
awesome.
one take. He was done. He was out of there.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was what he did. And whatever came out of his mouth during that recording, that's what you hear. And there was no two, three, five, 10 takes of anything. Okay. He sang to whatever was there. He said whatever he sang, whatever he sang. And he was like, all right, next one.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
One
And
other one
there
I'm going to
was,
mention.
yeah.
Oh, I'm
Well, there
sorry.
was the
Is
one with Cyndi Lauper he did too, but
who did Dean?
no, Frank Sinatra.
Oh. Oh, I didn't know he did something with Cyndi
There is
Lauper.
one with Cyndi Lauper
Is
with
there?
him
Oh,
together.
wow. Oh,
Um,
very cool.
Gotta look that up.
Yeah, I didn't know that.
Yeah, there is one. There is one with Cyndi Lauper too. So
Oh, nice.
yeah, and I don't know if it was done after the fact or if it
Oh, yeah,
was
because I know they
actually
released some
ever
things
done
after he
together.
passed.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I don't know if it was. I don't know if it was actually done in the '80s or '90s, right
Oh,
before Frank
okay.
passed or not, or if it was done one vocal and like Nat King Cole and Natalie Cole did, where they put
Oh,
the
yeah, that
vocals
was
together
wonderful
years
when they
later,
did
which was
that.
wonderful, which was
Oh, it was
amazing.
fantastic. It was
Yeah.
quite unforgettable.
Yes, indeed.
Oh,
So
yeah, the
yes,
one
your
other one I
last
was going to
one.
mention was Christmas Baby Please Come Home. I
Yes,
love that one. Darlene Love, and I love the
Darlene
remake
Love.
by you too. Also,
Yes,
that was a pretty damn good remake.
they're playing the Darlene Love version a lot this year,
They
which
are. I've noticed that too.
yeah, and it's really good to hear that back. You know what I mean? I'm glad that some of the classics are definitely being well represented. Some ones we probably haven't heard as much through the
Yeah.
years, but they're being very well represented
They
this
are,
year in some
and I
ways.
love that older artists like that are getting the notoriety and the attention.
Yeah.
One of my oldest friends, actually saw Darlene Love in concert over the weekend, and he said she
No
was amazing.
way.
He said he was like sitting there. He's like, I think I'm developing a crush on this old lady right
Old
now
lady,
because she
right?
was
Isn't it
because her voice
frightening?
just sounded amazing, and she was so
Yeah.
energetic on stage. He shared a clip on his Facebook page, and she was amazing. I
Isn't
wouldn't
it
have.
isn't it great when they go out and they actually, I mean, even now you hear Amy Grant, who comes out now and then, you know, basically does holiday series, or she's been around here, and I've heard her sing recently, and she's in her 60s, or late mid to late 60s.
Yeah,
Not
probably.
that
Yeah.
that's old,
No.
but not that that's old, but nonetheless, her voice is still, you listen to her talk and you don't hear it, but she starts to sing and Amy Grant's back. It's
I love
amazing.
it.
I mean, she just has
Yeah.
a great voice. And
Yeah,
it
I
still
love seeing
resonates
that
well.
thankfully I could say many performers. You see that with a lot of performers. They just love what they do. They
They're
take care of themselves,
Yeah,
and they sound
and they're
good.
hanging on to their voice. Some of them, they make, they arrange the music a little differently,
Hmm.
to work around whatever changes that happened through the years.
Yeah.
But nonetheless,
Like Dolly Parton. I mean, she just put
like
out that
Dolly.
hit album, and her voice sounds different, but she does things differently now, and it makes it work, and it still sounds
Yeah,
great, but in a different way.
yeah, and as long as I mean, obviously, music isn't just, we know it's not just in the voice, it's not just in the instruments, it's not just in any of that. The performers make it what it is.
Exactly.
And
Yeah.
and we know we love these people, and there's a reason for it, and the reason
Yeah.
is because they can transpose a piece of music that may even seem ordinary to you or me or anybody else if we just heard it raw on the street. But when they do it, and even if it's not the greatest version of what they do, it always sounds better than
It
what
does.
anybody else will do.
Yeah, you're
And
right.
that's why we still love these people. So,
Exactly. And that's a reason their music holds up, and they've got the passion inside of them. And that might sound corny to say, but you can see it. You can
you
see
can
it when
see
certain
it,
people perform, and you
feel it.
hear it.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I've seen Frankie Valli a couple of times over the last, I don't know, 2 years, and I know he's not out there singing. Okay, he's 90
Right.
years old. Okay, and I know that there's a lot of smoke and mirrors going into his act.
Yeah.
Okay, and you can see it and whatever. But you know what? You don't miss a darn thing.
Yeah.
Okay, you're enjoying that show.
Yeah.
All
I,
right,
I
as
imagine
much.
you are. That's so cool you
Yeah,
saw him. I just saw a clip of him
yeah.
from a concert from last week, I think. And he,
Did you?
you know, it,
Yeah,
it was entertaining. I enjoyed watching it. And
yeah. He's singing to a recorded, mouthing a recorded version
yeah,
of himself mostly. Well, not every
right.
time, mostly. But you
Right.
know what though? You're not brokenhearted. You
No,
know,
no. You
and
you you see multiple acts do that kind of thing, and like, well,
it's
Kiss is a whole other story. I know they just ended their thing, but they same kind of thing, you
yeah,
know. But yeah, you've got the people that love what they're doing. They're doing things the way they can now, and
right.
like I love seeing that video of Frankie Valli. I'm like, are you kidding me? I'm watching
Hmm.
this almost 90-year-old Frankie Valli singing Grease, and I'm there like moving around, you know, getting into it, and
One of my favorite parts of the show. I mean,
yeah.
I get excited when I hear. I mean, as soon as I hear the opening, bars to it, I'm like, yes. I'm like, here's it's gonna
Yeah.
be Grease,
That music
and
is always sticks with us, you know.
it
And just
does.
like we talked about Billy Squier and all the other Christmas songs, those things still
Hmm.
make you feel a certain way, no
It's
matter how
make you feel
old
a
you
certain
are.
way around the holidays. I mean, every song we both named were probably the older variety, most of them anyway. But when it comes right down to it, there's a reason why. Because they make you feel the way this time of year is supposed to make you feel.
Exactly, exactly.
And
And
that's
Dave,
what it is.
I really appreciate you talking about all this stuff with me. You taught me a lot, especially about Do They Know It's
Oh,
Christmas?
you always teach me a lot. I mean,
Well,
that's we
thanks,
we
thanks.
we learn a lot of stuff together. That's
We
what we
do
do.
learn a lot of stuff together. And if you're watching or listening, well, first of all, I want you to see my sweater again if you didn't see it again. And I can't state enough, go Bengals. You know,
There you go.
well, thanks. And you know, you got the flyers on there, so
Oh, I
you know,
always have my fly. Yeah, one of my many many flyer hats. Yeah, whole
well,
collection of
everybody,
them.
thank you so much for watching and listening. And if you celebrate Christmas, I hope you have a great Christmas. If not, just have a great December and have a great 2024 when that starts. And Dave,
Okay.
all the best to you, my friend. Thank you so much for
All the
being on the
best.
show
Merry
again.
Christmas to you. Merry Christmas, everybody. Happy holidays. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Everybody, take care.
Take care.